Good evening. It is Monday, September 8th, and we are here to talk about Policy Committee. My name is Tracy Osecki. I'll be chairing tonight, and I will start with a roll call, starting to my left.
Linda Stone, School Board.
Michael Roosevelt, School Board.
John Spring, Council Rock.
Andy Sanko, Superintendent.
Ann Horner, School Board.
Bob Hickey, School Board.
Jetta Piley, School Board.
Matthew McCarthy, Tech Integration.
And is Ms. Khan on the line?
Good evening, yes, Nicole Collins, School Board. Thank you.
Hi. And Mr. Tate is out of the country on business. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Spring.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is a reminder that for reliable, accurate, and up-to-date information about our district, please refer to resources, websites, and social media platforms managed by the Council Rock School District. We urge the community to be judicious in choosing where to obtain information and to be aware that there are unauthorized social media accounts using the Council Rock name that post false and misleading information regarding district matters. If you question what you are seeing, need additional details or a reliable fact check, please contact the district directly. Our contact information is readily available on our website at www.crsd.org. Thank you. So for tonight's policy committee meeting, we have a full slate of policies. We have 14 in total. 9 of them are second reads from last board meeting as well as last policy committee meeting where they went through first read, and 5 of them are up for first read. So we're going to go through the second reads first, as we've seen them already, and then we will address the first reads. So the first of the second read policies is 233, suspension and expulsion. That policy, as we discussed last time, is primarily substantively the same, except for a paragraph on the second to last page that talks about a process that we have been using anyway that just wasn't in the policy, that talks about the fact that the parent and guardian has the initial responsibility of finding an alternate educational setting. However, the school district does and almost all times step in and assist in order to obtain the schooling for the student who is being expelled. And again, that's a process that we have been using, we continue to use, and we are just codifying it in the policy.
I'll wait a second in case anybody has questions before we move on.
I have one question.
Oh, okay, Ms. Horner.
Has this policy been working well throughout the district?
It does work well, and it's also what we're required to do. We're obligated to educate kids, and if a student has an infraction, the parents can determine that they want to have their child educated in a certain way. And within that 30 days, whether it's the first second or the last second of that 30 days, if the parents tell us they can't find or they can't afford or they want our help, we intervene and make sure the child gets educated.
When, anybody else before I have my own question? When a child is expelled or suspended, are they given a copy of this policy or something similar, like a physical document that explains their rights and?
If there's a suspension of, the consequence, depending on the time frame, there is an informal hearing where the parents of the child can come in, or the guardians, and basically it's an informal hearing. They state their case, but they're presented with a host of documents, including attendance records, grades, and policies that are related to the infraction.
policy related to the infraction, so they know why they're being suspended or expelled, but how about like the procedures for once they're expelled or, suspended?
Well,
Are those also made clear to the parents?
they are, yes.
Okay.
And just most of our policies fall well, the consequence falls well below that 30-day mark, unless and until it's a second infraction with drugs and alcohol, policy 227. And of course, if it were to be a weapons violation, that comes with a 1-year mandatory state law of a year of exclusion.
Okay, I think we can move on.
So the next policy is policy 234, pregnant, parenting, and married students. There are several changes to this. Some came up at the meeting, some came in response to some questions. Just a few highlights. Married students are being removed from this policy, particularly because this policy focuses substantively on accommodations for pregnant and parenting students. It doesn't address accommodations for married students if the accommodation would be needed. However, married students are protected in other policies. And we'll see when we get to the next policy, 235, students' rights and responsibilities. We're actually adding marital status for protection from discrimination. So it is protected as a class in other policies. It was just taken out of this policy because other than the title, then in the title and in that initial paragraph, when they're just saying pretty much the name of the title, everything else deals with accommodations for pregnant and parenting students. The other major changes with respect to this from a substantive standpoint are under the law, not just for students, but also for staff. The law has changed whereby if someone is pregnant and needs accommodations, we are required to provide them even without a doctor's note. There are certain challenges that someone may have due to pregnancy. Many of them are well known by people, and because of that, the law says we shouldn't then make a student or a staff member, but a student in this case, have to go get a doctor's note to prove it. The onus is now on us to provide those accommodations, even without a doctor's note. So that's a major shift based on the law that's changed recently. And it also lists some of the most common accommodations. The list isn't a Council Rock list, it's a general list of just accommodations based on a particular person, what their need may be based on their pregnancy or parenting status.
Questions? Mr. Roosevelt?
Yeah, Mr. Spring, when that becomes apparent that there is a student who is pregnant, is this something that that Council Rock has to determine, or is this where you said Council Rock would be required to provide these things? Is that after Council Rock is notified? Like, is there a notice, or is this?
Well, they would have to, one would have to know that the person is pregnant.
Right.
In order to even know whether or not to give the accommodation.
Right.
Whether it's, the person telling them, the parents telling them, the doctors telling them, whatever it is. But if we know, we should provide these accommodations without having them to then go out and get a doctor's note.
Yeah. And so once Council Rock is notified or made aware that there's a student who is pregnant, does this require a notice to the parents that a student is being provided with a certain accommodations because they've notified us of being pregnant? Does that initiate a notice to their parents or guardians?
So I think that would depend on, and when I say depend on, it's only because I don't know what the counseling parameters are and the confidentiality and disclosure parameters. I know that we shared in the email that if it deals with the health, safety, status of a student, then counselors can disclose if it would affect the health of the student or others. the safety of the student or others, I believe then disclosure is permitted.
Disclosure to the parent?
Yes,
So there's,
well, disclosure to whoever
Parent or
or
guardian.
guardian.
so, but it does sound like there is a scenario where the parent or guardian would not be notified? Or is under no circumstance will the parent not, or guardian not be notified? I think, I mean, it's pretty obvious pregnancy is a health.
Yeah, I can't, I can't think of a situation where a parent would not be notified. I think that obviously, at least in my opinion and my interpretation of that, that is health, safety, and well-being of the student. They're still our student.
Right.
And I think that would fall under the confidentiality that we spoke with the board about by way of an email. And in my 36 or 37 years, I don't ever recall having to employ this in Council Rock. And, but I think that logically would say that to us that while there is student confidentiality, this has to do with the health, safety, and well-being of the student that we're in the care of.
Should there be some language in here that stipulates that, so that doesn't?
Well, I think that not being counselor, I think that falls under counseling parameters. So I'd be concerned about making that steadfast rule in policy that talks about accommodations.
So that's exactly why I think maybe there should be something in here somewhere, because there's a gray area. I mean,
I think what Ronnie's saying is this may not be the right box to put that in. And I would say that we probably want to talk to Peter about that and see where that would fall underneath the counseling confidentiality that we've spoken about. I hear what you're saying, I just don't know if this is the right box to put it in.
so what related policy would be the right box to put that in?
I'm not sure, that's why I want to talk to Peter and Richard about that.
Okay.
I would think it comes under confidentiality.
Yeah, but
Sure.
do we have a
But
policy?
this-
What policy is that?
We do have a confidential.
Didn't
Yeah,
we
we
talk
just-
like a couple of weeks ago about counseling and what's disclosed and what's not disclosed? I would think it would go on that one.
So we did pass a policy that would relate to this.
I think we passed it last month.
So we're doubling back, so we're doing a policy that probably relates to that,
Well,
and
this
we've
is,
already passed that.
this policy is specific that
About
if we find
accommodation.
out that they're pregnant, how we treat that student. That's all this is
No, I get it.
focused on.
Right, but we've all kind of agreed that it goes back to the policy that deals with confidentiality, that the board has already reviewed and passed, that this now relates to, right? Didn't you say that it relates to the box that we're talking about is the confidentiality one, which was something that was already passed? So a lot of these policies dovetail together, and I think that it's important to review policies that are dovetailed together so that you don't pass something one month and then have a missing piece in another one that may relate back to it that isn't addressed.
Ms. Pally?
Yeah, so I think this also has to do with the age of the student, right? Like, because we have students that are 18, and once you hit 18, the doctors don't even have to tell you what is going on with your child. So, and even if we're like over 16, there are different rules about what the doctors can share with you. So we don't, I mean, I definitely want to know if my child is pregnant, and I hope that I knew that before it comes from school or somebody else, but we have to be very careful not to step onto, you know, all these rules and regulations that I personally dislike that once my child is 18, I have nothing to do with their, like, you know, health status and everything else, but I'm expected to pay for it, right? And like even sharing information like from like lab results and stuff like that. So I think working to the solicitor would be a safe way to make sure we do the right thing.
The other issue is, you know, and while this may not come up often, there can't be an absolute rule. because in cases of abuse, in cases of, rape, whatever it may be, there has to, it doesn't allow for an absolute rule to say at all times. And I think that would create, that's why I think it's governed under the, like many things, not just this policy, but other policies are governed under those confidentiality, those legal requirements.
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road. And just like an IEP, the I is individual, a lot of these policies kind of broadly cover a lot of different stuff. And it's gaps where the issues come in and where policies interrelate with other policies. I think we should probably be reviewing them in concert together as companions, side by side, to really flesh out this interplay. And a lot of these cover a lot of stuff like that, where it doesn't present necessarily an absolute rule. It deals with several different circumstances, and I don't see why this would be any different. We could put those things in there.
Mr. Hickey?
Yeah, I was just saying, maybe we should just double check and see what our confidentiality, let's double check and see what that is, because I get it, this is for accommodations. And like you said, if someone's pregnant, and obviously it affects the health and welfare of that student.
Right.
So it would refer back to, because it does, then the guardian is notified, but then our policy does say with confidentiality, it says, however, if it has something to do with abuse or whatever, then it goes in another direction, which I guess, like you said, it can't be an absolute, but I think we are covered.
Yeah, I have it
It's just a
here.
matter of if somebody is pregnant, that we're supposed to follow
Accommodation.
the confidentiality policy, but also provide accommodations because of this.
Right.
Yeah, so
Which number is it?
this is 207.
Okay.
Under guidelines, it says, information received in confidence from a student may be revealed to the student's parent or guardian, parent/guardian, building principal, or other appropriate authority by the staff member who receives the information when the health, welfare, or safety of the student or other persons is clearly in jeopardy.
This is the one where I had an issue with the word may.
And we changed it, this
We
is,
changed it.
yeah, we changed it, the newest one, and it's maybe, we changed it
Has
to
authority.
authorized.
Yeah, and 42 PA is the one that indicates that if they're under 18, the parent must be notified, which is referenced to policy 207.
I think it says that if they're under 18, the parent holds the right to the privilege, confidentiality privilege for purposes of legal.
Meaning that they could be notified, meaning that they will be notified.
Provided that they are not indeed.
Right, exactly, in those horrible situations.
Right.
And I think the overarching theme of this policy, currently we operate under, as a district, as Ronnie said, for an employer or a student who was pregnant, they would have to present us with a doctor's note to receive accommodations. That burden now falls on us. Once we know we don't need a written note from a doctor saying give student A, B, C, or staff member 1, 2, 3 these accommodations. We employ those accommodations as soon as we're aware.
Anything else? Okay, I know we have a big agenda tonight, so. we'll go back.
So the next policy is policy 235, and there's only minor change to that, which is on paragraph 5 on the first page. We're actually adding, and we talked about this in this previous policy, for when we talk about the fact that we don't discriminate, we include handicap/disability, it was previously just disability, and then marital status and pregnancy. So pregnancy is, marital status is incorporated in here for protections.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Yeah, thank you. So this is just, I don't know. In one policy, we're getting rid of marriage status because we're talking about the status is more important than the situation of students being married. But here in another one, we're including married, correct? Or
Well, we're removing married from the first one because the policy itself other than in the name, doesn't address married students.
Uh-huh.
So it's almost as though it's thrown in that policy, but the whole substance of the policy deals with pregnant and parenting parents.
Right.
And if, in order to ensure that marriage status is protected, we include it among the other protected statuses on this policy.
So, and then broadly, once again, we've got another interesting situation where we're dealing with a policy that, I believe this would be accurate, Dr. Sanko, that in your 36 years in Council Rock, we also don't have students that are married together in addition to being married and/or pregnant, right?
None that I can recall, although we were discussing these at cabinet, a cabinet member said in their time in education, they've had one student couple who were married.
In their time in education, not
Their time in
not
education,
necessarily in
not Council
Council
Rock.
Rock. Okay.
So I have never seen it or been made aware of it, but we know at least in that one case, we had married students who were in high school.
To me, when we were going through this in the pre-committee meeting, this makes sense. I would hope that we would all not want to discriminate based on marital status. The other policy is about accommodations. I can't think of any accommodations that you would necessarily need in a classroom because you're married. I mean, you still have to learn, you still have to take the tests, you know. There's no specific accommodation that I can think of. So I think this makes sense to put it here.
It does. But in the broader sense, since this doesn't happen that often, I'm sure when it does, of either of these, there's going to be something that,
Any other comments? Okay.
The next two policies are for review purposes, which means that they basically, there's no changes to them. They were just policies we had, want to put eyes on them again. The first one is the surveys policy. Again, there's no changes to them. We did talk about how we, while there's a section on surveys for marketing purposes, we do not have any surveys for marketing purposes. But it's in here as part of the policy. Much like marriage, in case something ever pops up, we are covered. In case it maybe trying to market something to married students, we got both of them covered. And
yeah, and at that meeting, I think I asked about that, and there was an email that came out that addressed it.
And there were three surveys. One, you're gonna test my memory here. One was the pay survey, one was indicator 14. And I think if I'm correct, we also included the, I don't remember the third one. I have to go back and look at the email. But it was the pay survey that comes out every
I think it was
two
Aramark, the
years.
cafe.
It was, that's what it was.
Aramark.
That's what it was, thank you. Yeah, good memory, thank you.
And
The pay
the,
survey is every 2 years, indicator 14, I believe, is every year. And we worked with Aramark because they were a new food vendor.
and this is also applicable to surveys that a teacher or an educator might prepare to provide to students, correct, or not? This is only for third party?
Third party.
Are educators allowed to create surveys?
Well, I think surveys are done every day in a classroom, thumbs up, thumbs down,
Yeah.
give them a ticket out the door. So this is
Yeah.
applicable to third party.
Okay.
Do you think that it should say that specifically in this first line? I don't,
It says marketing purposes.
it says say marketing purposes.
You know, if you're doing a survey in your classroom, you're not, I don't think you're marketing it.
No. I was just wondering if we should be even more specific, like third-party
I think it would help.
surveys. Yeah, I mean, I think
I
as
don't
a
think it hurts.
teacher, it might be, you know, I might wonder, like, am I okay to ask my kids about, like, what their interests are or whatever? I wouldn't ask about a thumbs up, thumbs down, but as a teacher, I might be like, oh, I wonder if I can collect information about, like, you know, what their favorite book is or something like that. Does anybody have a problem with adding that to the purpose section?
I think it's a good idea because it's really a generalization to know, so it doesn't put the teachers in the.
Yeah.
So what would you like at it?
I think I just add third party before surveys and collection.
For use of
Surveys and-
information by third parties.
Surveys by third parties.
Yeah.
Or third-party surveys and collection and use.
Yeah. It does say it again under authority, surveys conducted by outside agencies.
Yeah.
Which then begs the question, do we have a similar policy that deals with surveys or whatever that teachers can ask kids? Because to Dr. Sanko's point, that gets a little complicated real quick with all sorts of surveys. But is there some sort of ground rules of what teachers cannot create surveys for?
We do not have a policy on that.
Should we? Does PSBA have a policy for something like that?
They
Not
don't
that
have a
I'm aware of.
policy on that.
I think that just, wouldn't that fall under the curriculum,
I don't know.
just how they are
Maybe.
teaching the subject?
Well, it could fall under a lot of things. It could fall under classroom management, it could fall under student participation, it could fall under, to Mrs. Goseki's example, what's your favorite book? I don't know how you parse that down to determine where that falls.
Would all of those be in 200 series and we're gonna get to them? Or are they strewn across different sections?
I thought there was no policy.
Yeah, you won't see.
Well, I know, but
Just-
classroom management
Oh.
and,
Those would be, is classroom management.
I think the general information that deals with staff is the 300s.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a policy specific on classroom management, or teaching to the curriculum. I think it's, there's the professionalism, there's policies on professionalism, on how you treat people, stuff like that.
Right.
And just general, employment-based policies for staff. But off the top of my head, I do not recall any type of policy that deals specifically with classroom management or various.
I've made
Specifics in
a
the
mental sticky note that when we get to 300s, we
300s?
can talk about it. maybe.
Think about it.
Yeah.
I just on this, I just want to add, we gave the board an answer on the 3 third-party surveys we do, but that doesn't mean that's all we get requests for. So we're continually and constantly getting requests to get information, and we do our very best to protect our kids from any of that.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I remember being in high school and getting a survey that dealt with probably all of these things and remember referring to it and giggling about how wrong it was.
And some of these companies are pretty creative in the way they try to go about getting information, mailing things directly to me, going around emailing to the building principals.
Yeah.
Well, we get emails from outside
Yeah.
asking us about student information, right?
Yeah, which I think in this day and age, 20, 30 plus years ago, it was something contained within that third party, but now the data is so important and there's so much money to be made off of data. And to some degree, you look at the Fourth Amendment, that your person, place, or thing should be to your own security, have that. And, understanding what your mental and psychological problems, your sex behavior, your illegal, antisocial, or incriminating, et cetera, could be maybe very profitable for a company, and I don't necessarily think it should be revealed, so it's interesting.
So.
We should protect our students.
It's not our
That's why this
information to
is here.
share.
It's not, exactly.
Okay,
The next policy for review is Student Assistance Program. Again, this is for review and really talks about our CR Cares program and, just what they are and kind of just a very broad philosophical view of what the goal is of our Student Assistance Program, which is really just to remove barriers so students can learn. The goal at the end of the day is always to help the student access their education.
Has there been any issues with, and is this policy been okay to work with this program?
I'm not aware of any issues. Defer to Dr. Sanko on that.
No,
I'm not
I
aware.
agree. I'm trying to go back in my mind. No.
Dr. Sanko, can I ask you, just for anybody listening, to give a brief summary of the program and what the CARES program is, what the student assistance
The
program
student assistance program? Or the,
and the CARES program?
it's another level of support for students. It's an in-house program whereby students can self-report, friends can anonymously report them. I guess in some ways, you can liken it to the Safe to Say program. If Ronnie and I are friends and he's not eating lunch, I can fill a card out anonymously, put it in a private mailbox, and an adult will get it, and then begin the conversation with Ronnie and his family about Ronnie not eating lunch, just like I can do with a Safe to Say something and make that report. The CARES program is very much the same. When we get into those programs, we also weave in outside agencies to help us in some cases. A good example of that is, if there is somebody that is struggling with a drug and alcohol problem, we would involve most times we involve the youth aid panel, and we use community resources to help that student and that family through those situations. So it's another layer or multiple layers for us to do our best to make sure students are safe in getting what they need.
Great. Is this a program that every district in PA has, or something similar? Are we required to have something like this? Or is this something that we go above and beyond to have?
If we're required to have it, but Council Rock has had it as long as I can remember. You could think back into Council Rock, sometimes kids that have benefited from these programs have to go outside of Council Rock for a certain period of time, and then they would come back into our Twilight program to transition back into the school. So I can't answer the question, is it a state mandate? But I do know that it has been, many students have benefited from these programs for one reason or another, whether it's the drug and alcohol example I used, or it's an anxiety issue, and a student may not be able to function in a large comprehensive high school like we have at North and South. So it's another layer of support for our kids that our community has provided for the students in this district.
Awesome. Mr. Roosevelt?
Quickly, just for clarity, the CR Cares is a team that helps to administer the SAP, correct?
They're both teams. They're
There's
both
an
teams,
SAP
but
team and a CR Cares.
they're all Council Rock, but through CARES or the Student Assistant Program, we can weave in outside agencies and resources. In both cases, it is a team of people. It's an administrator, it's a nurse, it's a psychologist, it's a counselor.
Yeah.
And each building has a core CARES team, and there we have CARES coordinators at our middle schools and our high schools. So if you think about it, at our elementary schools, we have guidance counselors. When you get to the middle schools and the high schools, we have the counselors, but we also have a CARES coordinator.
And because I'm just seeing in this policy, there's an authority that provides the SAP, but CARES is only sort of listed in the purpose in the top paragraph. So should that be also there under authority, or is there, the SAP is a system or a process?
Correct.
CR Cares is a team that administers that.
Correct.
process, right? Okay.
Yeah, if I confused that, I'm sorry, but yeah,
Sorry.
you're correct.
So the next policy for second read is foreign exchange students. And, with that policy, there's the one substantive change, particularly that deals with that policy. It really just provides the district with the ability, if need be able to administer a home language survey to a foreign exchange student, to best assess, the proper instruction, particularly those students, foreign exchange students who are going to be here for a longer period of time. Student who may be coming here for a week or two from another country likely wouldn't fall under that. But those students who are here for a longer period of time, who really need to access their education here, this gives the ability for the district to administer them for language fluency and potential language instruction, the language instruction program.
Questions and comments, Ms. Horner?
There was one though, when they came in, you did some analysis anyway on them to provide them some service. Was that not,
The what service?
when they came into the district anyway, you did some type of analysis on them survey, like to,
Are you thinking of
Or is that-
English learner students?
Yeah.
This
Is that-
this is different. This is,
Okay,
So
so
these are
what-
just for students who are here on a foreign exchange program, not students who are moving here permanently
Got
from
it.
another country.
got it.
But it's very similar, we would do, for those coming for a long period of time, very
Yeah.
similarly, we would. It's very similar to what you had brought up.
may I, before Ronnie goes on, can I go back to 236? Al Oberman is paying close attention, and he texted me, the SAP, Student Assistance Program, is a state mandate. So thanks to Al for following along at home and for texting us. So it is a state mandate.
Thanks, Dr. Oberman. Okay.
So the next policy is for second read, is the hazing policy. And that was a policy we really spoke about in detail last time. A policy that is really almost, for lack of a better term, fairly significant rewrite. And the reasoning again is the initial policy that we have was passed in July of 2018. No, I think we're number 2 on this one.
Got it, thanks.
So the initial policy was passed in July of 2018. Several months later, there was a comprehensive law in November of 2018 called the Timothy J. Piazza Anti-Hazing Law, based on the death of a student at Penn State due to hazing. And really created a comprehensive legislation to fight hazing. We are now incorporating the terms of the law from 2018 into our policy. It was just a timing thing where it just so happened that the policy was passed in July of 18 and the law passed in November, and it was never reincorporated in. So it is significant, the language, the definitions, the reaching of it, talking about various reporting requirements to law enforcement, talking about interim measures for those complaining about hazing, talking about the role of safe harbor, both in the statute from a criminal standpoint, but also safe harbor from a school standpoint, taking that into account. Remember, safe harbor is when an individual is taken for medical help prior to the involvement of law enforcement. And that looked at it from law enforcement as a potential mitigating factor, but not from the schools.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, this just goes on to indicate that there's a complaint procedure and how the student or the person can initiate that, correct?
Did you say that? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I said this this policy also with your rewrite goes through a complaint procedure
Yes.
and further outlines how the person who believes they're being hazed can file it.
Yes, correct.
This is an important policy. My question is, when there's a new club, or if you join a new sport or something like that, are the students not necessarily given this, but are they gone over with like the expectations and what is allowed? Not like necessarily in this detail, but, you know, I want to make sure that we're fully informing them.
So two things. One, there's an expectation at each school by each principal and team to go over certain policies at the beginning of the school year, one of which is harassment, one of which is bullying and cyberbullying, although it doesn't say hazing in those presentations to the staff at large. When you get into the sports, and particularly the sports, the coaches have the expectations that are set forth. So they do go over, I can't say to you that they use the word hazing, but they do set expectations.
And to Dr. Sanko, it's multi-tiered. There's another tier, even the athletic director to the coaches, their expectations for the coaches as to what's expected, and they can carry it down to the students as well.
It's an important policy. It's good to have a nice, strong policy.
This would also extend, of course, beyond the school year, correct? Some teams may still be connected
Yeah.
to faculty and coaches, and maybe over summer, a coach reaches out to previous or current players to say, hey, could you do something?
If it's a school-sanctioned event, the school rules apply.
Okay. If it's not a school-sanctioned event,
No, so if they're, I don't know,
No, generally, no, but if it's, their schools have summer practices, coaches' practices.
Right.
Stuff like that, it would apply to those.
yeah. So, but beyond that, there really wouldn't be a need or an encouragement, right? Or we're not aware of any situation where a coach or a faculty member might reach out to a student to ask them to do something that's not school sanctioned, that only a couple students would do, right? That shouldn't happen, right?
Don't they do like I'm not an athlete, so forget it, but I thought they did like captain's practice where like, you know, the captain of a sport would be inviting.
That would be school sanctioned.
That's school sanctioned.
I'm trying to think through Mr. Roosevelt's question. So if you have somebody who is a baseball coach or Council Rock, and then they're a Legion coach, they could have some of the same kids. So while that's not school sanctioned, if something were to happen with the Legion team and that individual adult, that's outside our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But if something were to happen, whether the team was taking a trip, school-sanctioned trip in the summer, or we were getting on a bus to go play Truman or Norristown or whoever, then that's a school-sanctioned event.
Right. A lot of times, things like this hazing stuff doesn't happen in view of everybody. A lot of times this happens in seclusion or private. So there would be no reason for a coach or a teacher to reach out to a student or a player, or a couple students or players, not the whole team, but a couple of them, and ask them to do something that puts them in jeopardy or danger or requires physical endurance to complete, which is not a school-sanctioned event, correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
If I can jump in. If it's, let's say, a lacrosse coach or whatever, if this person is the school lacrosse coach, and the people he's contacting are his players on that team, even if he contacts a few, the program that they're in is the school lacrosse team. That's inherently a sanctioned school activity.
I get that. So I'm talking about areas that are outside of that.
Then outside of the realm of the school, like you gave a good example with
Like
the Legion team, even though the coach is the coach of the school team, he's the coach of the Legion team, and when the incident happens, he's not affiliated with the school, he's affiliated with the Legion team, and so are his players who also play for both.
Yeah.
So then it becomes
I'm talking about a narrower, not a whole team thing.
All right, let me give you.
it doesn't matter,
And
two
this should not be
players.
encouraged, correct? I mean, the point that I'm trying to say is teachers and coaches should not be connecting to their players or students in a small group to be included in doing something which is not a school-sanctioned event. That behavior should not be happening, correct?
If it's affiliated with the school, you're correct.
Yeah.
Right, let me give you another example. The students who take advanced German, oftentimes there is a trip that goes to Germany. That is not a school sanctioned event, so we don't advertise it, we don't collect money for it, we're unaffiliated with it. Yet there is somebody that is employed as a Council Rock teacher who goes on that trip, but it's affiliated with a club outside of Council Rock. If we took that trip, like we take an international music trip, and the teacher or the administrator is acting as an agent of the district, it's school sanctioned. In the German trip that I just gave an example of, that's outside of our jurisdiction, much like the Legion coach example. Does that make sense?
Sure. For the purpose of this, where we're at, I think.
Okay.
Did you have a specific,
Maybe.
in mind
Maybe,
that happened that?
maybe.
Okay, because I don't know how narrowly
Mhm.
from getting that, if there's no, the liability's all on what you just said, Dr. Senko, would be all on the German trip, whatever organization is ahead of that. That liability all falls under there.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
The next policy is 250, and again, that is for review, and that's student recruitment, and that deals with the requirement, the federal requirement to notify parents of that the military has a right to seek information, particularly the names and contact information for secondary students that are going into their senior year. As we discussed previously, the high school principals do include that information and explain that to junior parents, I believe around May, so they're all aware and they have the right to opt out of that going into their senior year. So there is no change to this. It's one to just get your eyes on if there are any questions.
Questions? Is it an email notification? I guess.
I believe it gets put in a newsletter or a letter to all the junior parents. And I believe that, I would assume it's emailed, that letter's emailed out to them.
Okay. I think we can move on, yeah, nobody has
Okay.
questions.
Next policy, again, is for second read, and that's really just the retirement of the educational stability for children in foster care. We spent a lot of time in talking about the policies for students experiencing educational instability. Really, these policies were merged. There was a separate one for homeless, there was a separate one for foster care, and now it's all been merged into that one policy. So everything that was in that policy has been addressed in the new policy that's merged it overall for children experiencing educational instability.
Do we have a copy of 255?
I don't believe
I have this.
Right, but it just
Yeah.
says that we're retiring it. I guess
I don't-
before I say we should retire it, I'd kind of like to see it.
Yeah, I can, it was provided the previous two meetings, but I can get you copies of that as well.
That would be.
I can-
Yeah, and I think we can still move forward with it for second read, but I would like to see it.
And it
And you-
may have been emailed as well in that.
I could check my folder and see if I have it from last time.
But I'll re-email it to everyone.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks, Ronnie.
No problem.
I thought you did, I think it was in your last email.
It may have been. Yeah, it is in the package that you gave us last time, and if you want to send it around,
I'm happy to re-email that one.
but we did get it last time.
So those are all the policies for second read. And we have 5 policies that we'd like to present for first read at the next meeting. The first policy is student government, and it's policy 228. There's only one change to it, the second paragraph under authority. Previously, when it was written, it was primarily focused on high school student body. However, there are student councils and, student government at middle school as well as even at elementary school. So we just wanted to make sure that it touched on all levels.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, next question. Do we know who the faculty member that is the advisor for student activities? It says that the board approves the faculty advisor.
Yep, so those are approved
Okay.
through our EDRPPs when we do EDRPP payments. Our student, all the grade level and student council advisors are approved at that time by the board.
Okay, and how many are there, by the way, at each,
How many?
one at each school?
One at each school.
Okay,
There's an approval for every 8 years.
So the policy act provides that the bylaws get approved every 8 years. We did talk to Mr. Funk to find out, because none of us have been here for 8 years, we don't know when the last time it was approved, if it was within the past 8 years. However, that is something that Mr. Funk indicated that we can always provide.
And that's dealing with the faculty members that are approved, or
I
That's the
believe
bylaws.
that every 8 years talks about the constitution or bylaws of the organization.
okay. Right, so the group,
Correct.
the student, right, that's every 8 years.
At our pre-meeting, just for transparency here, at our pre-meeting, I mentioned to Dr. Sanko how much work and how important it is for the people who serve on these student government boards, and I asked if we could have a, little reception with them, or get to know them, or, somehow acknowledge their work at the board level.
And my answer to that is sure, but the lower we go, the more complicated it gets. So at the elementary level, there are many more students involved in student council because they partner with each other. You could have 15, 18, 25 students as members of student council in an elementary school. But when you get to the high school and you have student government, it's set up like an executive board. So to try to pull 10 elementary schools together, even if you use the number 10, we're talking about 100 kids, 100 families. So that one would be a little bit more challenging to pull off, but we can certainly do something. And we do get a chance to see our student executive boards monthly at the board meeting. So, but yeah, we can certainly work on that.
Maybe there's already something at the school that the board could be invited to. Like maybe the school already recognizes the, meeting, whatever.
Well, the students get recognized at the end of the year, and I'm thinking elementary, they get recognized at the end of the year for their achievement recognition. At the secondary level, you know, most of their work is work. They're having their meetings and putting their ideas and agendas forward.
I leave it in your very capable hands to figure something out. Okay, ready to move on?
The next policy is student fundraising. The changes to student fundraising are really just for clarification purposes. It really streamlines the definition of what fundraising is and talks about the process that we use now, which is when it's a school organization, like a club or student government, approval for fundraising generally falls through the building administration. If it is and this isn't a change, this is in here already, if it is a organization outside the school, not a school-based organization, approval for fundraising goes through the superintendent's office.
Mr. Roosevelt?
Quickly, so just for clarity, I don't think this is happening as much anymore, but I remember it happening often about 10 years ago. Students ring your doorbell and say that they're saving up for college, and can you buy these overpriced magazines and subscriptions? Council Rock was not doing that because of this policy.
No, we're not, and we're not taking the $50 or $25 from the parents and having them sell each candy bar for $1 anymore either.
Yep, wonderful.
Good, good, good. Okay,
The next policy is public performances by students. And again, that is just, there's no change to that. That is just a review of the policy that we have that talks about, really talks about just students participating in performances outside of the normal school day.
so we talked in our pre-meeting about they're not required to participate in the performance outside of their school day, and it can't affect their grade if they can't come to a concert, something like that.
They can't be disciplined or anything of that nature. You know, because Dr. Sanko pointed this out very well, that, you know, a lot of times students have competing events, school events, not just outside. And to put that on that student, thinking that no matter which one I'm going to be penalized for when they're all school events, wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention that, you know, not every parent is available to drive their kids to every event on every night. Mr. Roosevelt and then Mr. Hickey.
Mr. Hickey, you go first. You might.
I have to, and maybe it's different since, you know, my kids have graduated a long time ago. Does this also relate to sports?
This is for performances. Go ahead, Ronnie.
No.
No, it does not relate to sports.
Okay, so just a sport isn't considered a performance.
It could be.
Also, sports are not mandated. Like, so you can choose to join a sport. If you're taking band, there's a concert at night, and you can't be required, if you have competing stuff, to go to that concert, and you can't be penalized from a grade standpoint or anything of that nature. So it wouldn't fall under that sports are optional. So it's a little different. This really talks more about within, you know, the curricular arena, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
So it's
I don't
like,
have examples tonight, I'll give another one. So at the elementary school, if you're in chorus and you participate because you're in 5th grade or 6th grade, and there's an evening choral concert and you don't go because you have A, B, C, or D, or it just doesn't fit into the family dynamic for that night or time, you cannot, as a student, be penalized for not going to that evening concert, right? So during the school day, we have an expectation that you're there to participate in chorus, but because you can't go at night, it doesn't impact you in any way at all.
And under authority, it talks about, performances that contribute to an educational program.
Okay.
That makes sense to me. Mr. Roosevelt?
I'm on a similar wavelength with Mr. Hickey here, and I'm glad that he kicked the ball off here. Is a graduation rehearsal a performance or a sports activity? Talking about overlaps.
I don't know if one would define, and just using the wording of this, as a performance that contributes to the educational program.
But because Mason had MBIT, and he did not, there was a separate, something happened with rehearsal, and it was fine.
Yeah, because
He walked.
I thought that there was a recent conflict with our most recent graduation, where there were athletes that had a conflict with rehearsal for graduation, and I can't remember which way it went, if it was the coach that said you have to be here or you're off the team, and it was some extraneous thing, I'm not sure, or if it was you have to be at graduation rehearsal or you're not going to graduate. If
They
there's,
couldn't make that, right?
right, I know,
Yeah.
correct? That can't happen,
That can't,
right?
no,
Yeah,
of course not.
well, I believe there were some students that were presented that ultimatum. Clearly, they graduated, because I know some of them.
My guess is the threat came from the coach or whatever the agency was.
I don't remember if it was a threat from the coach or if it was a threat from administration about attending graduation rehearsal.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It may have been the latter, but I'm not, I don't.
I'll ask some questions on that, I don't know that one.
But we shouldn't be doing that.
Of course
No,
not.
It's a
Okay,
culmination of 13.
there you go. This was kind of my response.
The next policy, social events and class trips, is I call it a quasi-review. The policy is being reviewed, however, at our pre-meeting, we discussed adding district-sponsored social events and class trips just for clarification. And that clarification is really for an example that Dr. Sanko gave earlier, dealing with another policy. It wouldn't relate to, for instance, a trip to Germany that our German teacher is running, but it's through a private organization. Because that's, even though it's the teacher who might be the person running the trip, it's not a school-sponsored trip, it's run through a private organization. So that, the change in title, it doesn't affect the substance of the policy, but it just provides a little clarification with respect to the change in title.
Comments, questions? I think we can move on.
And the last policy is for review, there's no changes. Talks about student involvement in decision-making. And it's one of those policies I've said before, it's really a philosophy statement from the board. And that is that we value our students, we value their input. We want them to be involved in decision-making where appropriate and based on maturity level. What a high school student may be involved in may be very different than what an elementary student may be involved in, just based on maturity level. And really just, I will say, in my experience, Dr. Sanko, Mr. Funk, Ms. Crawford, and one, we really do embrace, our student involvement in decision-making and giving their views on and really taking that into account. So again, this is more of a philosophy statement, just talking about how much we do value and support our student input.
Comments? Ms. Khan?
I'm okay with it now, thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the 14 policies.
That was a lot.
Thank you for your patience.
Good. Okay, well, we have no public comments, or no public, so we'll say no public comment. And so we are adjourned.
Thanks.